Hockey Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 25 of the Handsome Hockey Podcast. We are once more here from not even remotely sunny Portland, Oregon.
Hi, I'm Evan. Welcome.
And I am Jake. Thank you, as always, for stopping by. We've got championship hockey to recap today. We're pretty thrilled to be able to report that the Isobel Cup has finally been raised.
It was hoisted.
It has risen.
Hoisted with authority.
Yes, by Jillian Dempsey of the Boston Pride yesterday afternoon. The Boston Pride beat the Minnesota Whitecaps 4-3 in the final.
It was a little less close than the score suggests. The Whitecaps had a very late third period push after scoring the first goal and made it 4-3 with 20 dramatic seconds left in the game. Got a sense that if they had a little bit longer, they might have come back and won, but it was an exciting game. You know, had some good lead changes, had a lot of great hockey and spirited play by both teams. And damn, Boston just kind of did what we thought they might do, huh?
Yeah, 3 months ago. At one point I texted Evan, I said, well, Boston just kind of turned it on.
Yep.
And his response was, yes,
that goal machine.
This game is not looking good. And to credit the Whitecaps, coming back on a team that is that good with that goalie is not easy. So credit should be given to them for making it a game late. But yeah, Boston is just, I think this restart just shows us that Boston is way better.
Well, also playing on home ice. And
yes, definitely helped.
Consistently probably the strongest franchise. This championship game was a close game. It had, you could see that the teams were pretty evenly matched. The first two games were a little bit less close, with Minnesota dispatching the Connecticut Whale 7-0 and Boston beating Toronto 6-2. Both of those games, I think, were closer than the score suggested. The Whale had what we both thought was a good goal waved off, and that kind of changed the tide of the game. And then Toronto skated hard against Boston in the first one, but Boston is just too powerful. In the championship, the Whitecaps, they scored first and then came back to make it 4-2 after Boston turned on the goal machine, and then added the third after a major boarding penalty by Teresa Vanisova with about 2 minutes, 30 seconds left. So they got to keep the power play for that last 20 seconds. And I think the Boston Twitter account tweeted, "This is the most dramatic 19.4 seconds of all of our lives." And that was appropriate. The Whitecaps did what they could to score with that time left, but yeah, just didn't have the clock space. You got the sense that, maybe if they had gotten that full 5-minute penalty to have unlimited goals, we might be talking about a different game.
I think the first two games were actually a little bit closer than the score would suggest. The Whale actually outshot the Whitecaps in that game by a significant margin. And
yeah, the goalie just was absolutely amazing.
Levier is outstanding goalie.
And also the pads, her fish pads are incredible.
And then in the Toronto game, Michaela Grant-Mentis came within a thin hair of scoring a goal that Lovisa Sealander kicked off the line. Just tiny moments. You mentioned the goal that was taken away from the Whale, which honestly, we were both sitting there watching the replay going, I don't know how they can remove that goal.
Yeah, I think that totally should have counted, and that would have made it 1-1 and a completely different game. The Whitecaps then scored a second one pretty quickly, and the rout was on, and they got to buckle down because that team is very, very good defensively.
And they're very fast, so they can hunker down, play that defensive style, leak out players via long passes out of the zone. And then you saw Ali Thunstrom score a breakaway goal. That was the second goal. That's all they needed to do. And they had the speed and the goaltending to counter whatever punches that the Whale could throw at them.
It's tough to see the team you're rooting for not do so hot, but they look good doing it. And
those jerseys, they're so good.
I'm partial to the Whitecaps jerseys, but objectively the Whale jerseys are just super fun.
I hadn't realized that they had the whale on the shoulder as well. And when I saw that again, I was just like, oh, God, those are just perfect. The color scheme, the logo, they're great fun.
You know what's also fun? We get to add a 7th jersey.
As reported by Marissa Ingmeni on Twitter, the NWHL has announced or is going to announce a 7th franchise for the upcoming season. This one will be based out of Montreal. The owners are also have stakes in the Toronto franchise and I believe the Boston franchise as well. So not new owners, but bringing in another team into the league, which theoretically opens up more opportunities for women to play hockey. So, I mean, there's 30 more spots or however many to fill in the league. And it brings them to a new locale. Montreal, obviously a hockey hotbed.
Yeah, one expects that they'll be welcomed with open arms and lots of alcohol will be driven into hands of fans and they will have a good time with these games. Obviously,
super thrilling to see within a week of each other. We get to see Boston raise for the first time. Somebody raised the Isobel Cup for the second time. So this is Boston's second championship, and they are the first team to do that. We get to see the Isobel Cup raised after not being raised for 2 years.
Due to COVID.
Plus an extra weight because of COVID this year. And we get to welcome Montreal into the league, which is like just a really great. It's great to see that the game is growing. It's great to see that the NWHL is growing. Obviously, it has a ways to go if you want to be able to have these players be full-time players and not have to work separate jobs. There's a ways to go, especially, considering the PWHPA is out there and that's what they are asking for as players. But it is a significant step. Anytime you can grow a league that shows that there's financial stability, it shows that there's interest. It shows that there are people who are interested in being owners in the league. It's an excellent next step for the NWHL. We know that there's a talent pool to field another team. It's not like they're adding a 48th team or something like that. But again, it's just giving more women the opportunity to live their dreams and continue playing professional hockey. And that's awesome.
Yeah, it also sends the message that, the investment that this group is making in the league, they are getting the returns that they want on it and continuing to add to their investment. And during the wobble in Lake Placid and after, women's hockey's picked up some of its largest sponsorships. So yeah, you can tell that persevering in the face of COVID has won them a lot of new fans and new eyes in the game, and really excited for where it can go from here.
You mentioned that the championship game ended with a penalty that was still in effect. What if that was a rule change that happened in hockey where
defensive penalty, if you're up, it extends the game by however long?
That'd be great.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, we can. That's an off-season topic.
No, I know, but that totally should get added to the wacky hockey list. I would love just like an experimental rules league. Maybe it's 3-on-3. Maybe you have takebacks and no refs. Who knows? Well,
baseball has that with their minor leagues. They implement rule changes in certain leagues to try them out before implementing them in Major League Baseball. Guessing the NHL could do that. I mean, they have
apparently
contracts.
They used to. Apparently, that used to be a thing with teams out of the running. I believe it was Sean McIndoe from The Athletic was talking recently about how in the 1930s or something, they used to do this. And so for a game for two teams that were out of the standings, they changed offsides to the red line. It would be fun to see that in hockey. Also, between roller hockey and ice hockey, there's so much different hockey to be played. You can kind of pick your poison if you want to watch it, but I think we could all say that pro beach hockey could come back when ESPN has hockey rights, and we would love it.
Oh, man. I remember, I don't know I think Pro Beach Hockey came out before I started playing hockey, just a little bit before. Because I didn't start playing hockey till I was around 12, I think. And I remember watching it and being like, this looks like an amazing time. And
it apparently was just like the Red Hot Chili Peppers on skates.
Yes. Yeah. Well, if you read, I read an oral history of it somewhere, and they were just talking about how it was pure madness.
Just drug use and parties and skater boys. And
which is exactly what it should be. And if
Right.
it comes back, it should definitely be that again.
for the uninitiated, Pro Beach Hockey was a short-lived ESPN league that featured roller hockey with a ball, full check, and also a 2-point line, beyond which if you scored, it counted for 2. And they also had a inclined skateboard-style ramp behind the net.
Which did exactly what you would think to play behind the net. It just
Yeah.
made it absurd.
The whole thing was absurd, and I think you can see on YouTube some old highlights still exist.
Oh, absolutely.
And they just look like a blast. And I don't know, it looks like the second most fun you could have on camera to like American Gladiators.
I would, to this day, if somebody was like, hey, did you know the gauntlet is still set up and you can run it? And I'd be like, are there going to be gladiators there? And they're like, they can't ever leave. And I'd be like,
They're trapped. That's just where they live.
I'd be like,
They're actually bred there.
let's do this. Yeah, let's get hit by tennis balls.
Yeah, it's like the Minotaur and its maze. They just
Yeah. No, I'm not a great athlete, but I'm a decent athlete. I think I would be legitimately upset if I didn't make it through the gauntlet.
I always wanted to know how I would do, compared to the people that they always put forward.
Well, the people that they put forward were always fit, usually police officers or, people who were in some sort of workout field.
Yeah, like fitness instructors.
Yeah, or they were head coaches for track and field or something like that. So, I mean, they were always in shape folks that were on that show. And a lot of them didn't make
I
it
know.
through.
A lot of them just got absolutely destroyed in some of those games.
And so I would love to. I felt the same way about Ninja Warrior.
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember Nickelodeon Guts?
Not really, but
So Nickelodeon,
I was not a big Nickelodeon kid.
So Nickelodeon Guts was kind of the same thing, but
Okay.
for kids, and they had to like climb walls and climb a mountain and do bike races, but they were all extreme challenges. I would have loved to have done that, but unfortunately my family never found itself down in Universal Studios, so we weren't. And then they had Legends of the Hidden Temple, which I would have probably stabbed all of my friends to be on.
And then the penultimate most extreme elimination challenge.
Yes. But yeah, so wow, we really got off target here. But speaking of where the game can go from here, I think fans and the media would like the league, the NHL, to be more transparent. And in not firing, but kind of shuffling Tim Peel off the hockey mortal coil, they did something that was inherently not transparent, I feel.
So this week, the NHL released one of their longtime but less celebrated officials, Tim Peel.
That's putting it nicely.
From they relieved him of his duties, but did not fire him because he is also retiring after he was caught on a broadcast mic saying that he wanted to penalize a specific team.
And wanted to penalize them quickly in order to even things up.
Which, to unpack this really strange situation, yes, it's a bad thing to verbalize that you are calling a penalty intentionally and then to call just a weak ass non-trip on the Predators against the Red Wings. It just doesn't make any damn sense.
Well, here's the thing though. We all know that makeup calls exist in hockey.
Yeah.
On Puck Soup this week, Sean McIndoe made the point that the NHL is the only league in North American professional sports where that's coming. You know that, well, hockey in general, but the NHL to a very obvious extent polices the game by trying to penalize teams as equally as possible. You never see makeup calls in the NFL.
Well, or that we perceive.
Well, there's no leveling of the calls in order to make it fair. And there's no fan outcry. In the NHL, you just kind of understand there was a hooking penalty there called. They've called 2 penalties in a row on Boston. Well, they're definitely going to call one on the Islanders now. To kind
Generally,
of,
yeah.
it's very rare that you see like 6 penalties in a game for one team and 1 for the other. It's usually like 5-3, 5-4, 2-4, like that sort of thing.
And we attribute this normally to game management, air quotes, game management.
Yes, and of which Tim Peel and other NHL refs, it's just kind of an understood part of the game. And for the NHL to pseudo fire someone for saying live what we all know happens, like no hockey fan was outraged and was shocked by the fact that this happened. No hockey fan went, oh my God, that happens? I can't believe it. There were no aghast people in the hockey world until they fired him. And then you're like, well, why'd you fire the guy? We all know this happens. This is ridiculous.
Well, in my opinion, it was a punishable offense. And
yeah, for sure.
The most convenient way to punish this guy was just to say, okay, we're going to sit you for the last couple of months that you were going to work in your career. He was not regarded as one of the best refs in the league. He had never worked a Stanley Cup playoff.
He'd only reffed 90 playoff games in his entire career.
Sorry, a Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
Only reffed 90 playoff games, that's the honor roll of NHL officiating, is if you get to work the playoffs and then especially the Stanley Cup finals. Perhaps his highlight of his career is when he accidentally had a puck dumped into the zone and then ricocheted off of his nut cup directly behind Roberto Luongo and into the net. And it took a full minute for anybody to understand what the fuck had just happened. And then, he's like laying in the ground, the puck's in the net, and then replay shows this puck going in off of his cup.
It went in off of Tim's peel.
But what kind of irks me is that A, he's so close to retirement. B, he was actually talking to the Predators bench, like explaining to them why he called this BS call on them. According to Matt Duchesne on Robbie and Recode 1025 The Game, Preds Radio, the comments were made towards Philip Forsberg and the Preds bench, which to me is just smacks of kind of low-key power tripping. This is kind of what half-decent guys that are a little bit drunk on their minor power look like, low-time tyrants kind of thing. One gets a sense that the reason that the NHL has come down so heavily on him, other than it being convenient, is because of sports betting and the betting houses and individual bettors wanting to know that the rules are going to be enforced equally, which is kind of contrary to hockey culture.
The sports betting thing, while nobody is saying that they think that was an issue, and as a hockey fan who understands that this happens in every game, I don't think anybody in hockey thinks this is a Tim Donahue scandal.
No, it's part of game management. It's part of keeping the giant men with blades and weapons in their hands calm enough to not kill each other.
But I understand why people outside of hockey might think, oh my God, this guy's fixing games. Right. Hockey has a scandal on its hand. And why Colin Campbell would, or Colin Campbell, as Greg Wyshynski calls him, why Colin Campbell would come down in this way.
Colin Campbell, who did get into his own officiating snafu by trying to get, some sort of lenience on his son?
Yes, his son was playing in the league, and he sent an email that was then widely distributed telling people to stop calling so many penalties on his son.
Which, that's worse than this Tim Peel thing. And obviously nothing happened to Colin Campbell. So yeah, it's a little bit, okay, you threw the book at him, whatever, but he's still going to retire. He's still going to get his pension. He's still not really going to be heavily penalized.
He's fine.
You get the sense that the book was thrown at him partially because he said the unspoken part out loud. Like, he's the Republican that says, yeah, we're actually trying to keep black people from voting in Georgia. Always going to get put in a worse position because you're honest. The funny part is that the refs now have started covering their mics like they're cops with body cameras, so now is it like any cop who covers his body camera and then something
nefarious happens should get fired. And every referee who covers his mic and then something nefarious happens should get fired.
Right. So, now we have videos of or NHL referees like talking to players while just like with their fist over their mics. I mean, mics were on the refs in the first place because people kind of liked this sort of weird sub-politics of the game, and hearing the refs yell at the players and say weird shit like, "Hey, fuck you, go to the box."
Yeah, I love that part. I'm actually going to be slightly disappointed when we get crowds back in games, just because we're going to lose hearing the chirpiness without being like, "Oh, Milan Lucic is mic'd up for this game. Let's see what he has to say." And then they go 3 seconds in and they're like, "Well, that's enough," because he's cursing a lot.
No,
he's going to be perfectly fine in his life.
Absolutely.
He will probably retire to some farm in Canada and sit in a rocking chair on his front porch. And occasionally people will call him up for an interview, and then he'll give some crazy quotes.
So the other embarrassing development for the NHL this week has been more COVID. Yay.
Take that, Canada.
Yeah.
We've been waiting all this time, licking our COVID paws.
Finally, America is not the source of COVID postponements and cancellations in the league. It is Canada with its first infection running rampant through the Montreal Canadiens, which that would make sense. Like the fun-having city in Canada would be dealing with this right around spring break time.
I mean, it's obviously too bad that it's happening. We thought that the NHL had kind of gotten away from that. Then they let Buffalo and Boston play when people were just hacking up along with COVID prior to games. And then we saw a couple of games in Boston postponed because of it. To give the NHL credit, in the back half of the season, they have done much better.
Kudos to the NHL, but it's a little funny to see the Canadian teams finally fall prey to this.
Yeah, for the longest time, the only player that all of Canada had on a COVID list was Jesse Puljujarvi, which is kind of just like a beautiful bookend to his career.
Yeah, I kind of felt bad for him because he was starting to have some good stretches of performance there, and his tongue was doing hilarious things.
And he was doing really great while he was hanging out with Connor McDavid. So
funny how that happens.
Yeah, it's like all of those wingers that were really good playing with Sidney Crosby.
Well, you had to survive the cut first. That was the problem. It was like, wasn't Alex Galchenyuk one of those?
They tried to make him, and he did not make the cut.
Yeah, but he was like supposed to be like, okay, finally, we have someone for you, Sid. And Sid just like, nope.
The same thing with Connor Sheary. Like, Connor Sheary was great in Pittsburgh, and what has he done since? Nothing. That's
maybe another fun story is Alex Galchenyuk with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and then also Jason Spezza and Joe Thornton just combined for like $2.6 million in salary, and they are individually all like performing better than any Buffalo Sabre.
Speaking of Buffalo.
Yeah, it was a really funny situation in one of their recent losses to the Rangers that just sort of highlights this whole madness of COVID and hockey. Dan Granato was appointed interim head coach for the Sabres, and then in coaching Buffalo against the Rangers, he was actually in that game being paid more by the Rangers in dead money for being a coach in their system on a previous contract and being fired than what he was being paid by the owners of Buffalo, Terry and Kim Pegula. And then it became an even stranger situation when he himself tested positive for COVID, forcing the classic NHL desperation move of putting the GM behind the bench. And so Kevin Adams got to coach game. In this season, we have seen a Gordie Howe hat trick, a Natty Hattie, the most amount of points in a period equaled, both of those by Mika Zibanejad. But now the just most iconic sign of front office failure is the GM behind the bench.
I mean, New York had to do it with Chris Drury, their assistant GM, when their entire staff was quarantined. That team won 9-0.
Yeah, that team absolutely stomped over the floundering Philadelphia Flyers.
Buffalo didn't have as much luck.
No, they neither scored 9 goals nor won.
Surprise.
Sorry, Buffalo. It'll all be over soon.
Buffalo, honestly, we really love you. if we were going to do like a road trip show, I would say like, let's go to fucking Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo has some of the best fans.
It's a bummer that these COVID cases are happening. We obviously don't want to see them continue in the NHL or in general.
Some players have had some pretty bad effects from COVID, even as, relatively healthy younger men. It can still affect you very heavily.
And I think we're going to get stories after this year.
Oh, yeah.
Where we find out that like players were just generally debilitated by this.
Yeah, it's going to be like
never were able to get back on track.
Right about the same time we find out after the Stanley Cup about all of the injuries that players have been playing with, like they do every year. We'll also get the like COVID injury dump, like Jesse Puljujarvi would be like, I couldn't breathe. And Rasmus Ristolainen is like, I couldn't play defense.
Jonathan Toews is like, I couldn't even play.
Well, Jonathan Toews is out with an acute case of his 30s.
My body just doesn't do what it used to. Yeah, you're 30.
Yeah. I'm
welcome to the show.
I'm fatigued and don't feel like competing. Well, that's just called losing your testosterone production.
Yeah, you got low T, bud.
Yeah.
Time to put some gel on your balls and strap on the skates.
It looks like Chicago's going to make the playoffs. But there are a whole bunch of other teams behind them that are right nipping at the heels. I mean, we've talked about Columbus and just their insane non-usage of star Patrick Laine after trading for him.
He has, in 2 games against the Red Wings this weekend, played a combined less than 30 minutes.
Are you trying to ruin a player that you traded good pieces for? Like,
they are ruining that boy.
What is going on in Columbus makes me feel so much better that they're the team that's immediately behind the Blackhawks in the standings and not Nashville or something.
I think, well,
I guess Nashville is now, but
in the next couple of weeks, we're going to see really that each division has 3 teams that are in and everybody's vying for a 4th place.
Yeah, totally.
For that last spot.
And definitely seeing teams in all of these races that we did not expect to see. So we're going to just run through some of these races and talk about what we think might happen. And
we might as well start with the Central. I mean,
yeah, well, I was kind of getting that. We were already kind of talking about the Central. The Nashville-Chicago race for the last playoff spot, I feel like, is a story, as a Blackhawks fan, that is as old as time.
Well, you also have the Stars, who are 4 games in hand.
Correct.
And while the Stars have not looked very good, that 4 games, I mean, you have to win those games, but you still have them. And so until those games start to even out, you can't really count out the Stars, I think.
And that's another kind of question about games in hand is, do we think all the games get played? And some of the, pundits that we like have expressed doubt that all teams would play all games. I kind of think we're going to get to that, get all the teams past the finish line with all their games. But some of these teams are going to be incredibly exhausted when they get there. If Dallas is going to make up all of their games, they are going to have a busy last couple months of the season.
Dallas and Boston actually has played the fewest games in the league. So it's going to be a race to the finish. Hopefully they give teams like a week off or something before the playoffs start to just recharge for a little bit. Evan, I think you're totally right here that we're going to see some really tired skaters when we get to the playoffs. And while I think the Stanley Cup playoffs will remedy some of that for some of those players, especially in the first round, but as those playoffs drag on and drag on and drag on, you're going to see the teams who maybe had to have that race to the finish. Mm-hmm. I mean,
some teams that can make it past the American Gladiators gauntlet, but then not immediately do a second gauntlet, understandably so.
The biggest discrepancy right now, or difference, is 7 games. So the Canucks have played 37 and Boston's played 30. That's a big difference.
And Boston is sitting in 4th above Philly and the New York Rangers. They definitely look like they're just going to be that 4th team. And
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they ended up being that 3rd team. I know the Penguins are hot right now, but we'll see if that kind of continues. But yeah, there is a especially since the Bruins have 5 games in hand on the Penguins and they're 7 points back. So
right. And I see Philadelphia as closer to falling out of this playoff race than getting further back into it, because Carter Hart has a poopy diaper in terms of how he's playing hockey right now. And their defensemen aren't keeping any of the shots off of him. So
Carter Hart has played like he has had a soggy bottom for about the last 2 months. So their goalie's save percentage is like 0.865.
I'm surprised nobody's just like changed his Wikipedia page to Carter Fart.
I'm surprised they haven't traded for a goalie. James Reimer is just hanging out.
Yeah, that's true, but there's so much else wrong on that team that I don't know if a new goalie is going to do much. You know, you might just be spending Scott Lawton on another goalie that's going to get lit up. Didn't you say that this team save percentage was something?
It's like 0.87 or something like that. It's
Jesus Christ. That's a team save percentage.
Yeah.
So team save percentage is all shots blocked and stopped by a goalie.
Yeah, Elliott has not been any better.
No, and he was early on. He was kind of keeping them afloat for a little bit while Carter Hart was sucking. Carter Hart is showing no signs of getting better this season, at least. He probably will next season. He might be a solid buy low candidate in some sort of fantasy league. But yeah, that team is falling out of the playoff race and not getting further back into it. The Rangers, on the other hand, have been beating up on the Flyers, but kind of nobody else. You know, they aren't. Have they beaten Boston?
They're 5-4-1 in their last 10. They've lost 2 in a row. Nobody seems to really be seizing the reins down there in the bottom of that division. So,
and they're at 500, and Boston is at 650. So that's a pretty big difference between Philly and New York and Boston. I feel comfortable just saying that top 4 we're looking at right now, Washington, Islanders, Pittsburgh, Boston, like that's probably who we walk into the playoffs with in some form.
Yeah, some form of, yeah. No, you said it. I'll just shut up. So, and I think we were talking about the Central. I'm fairly confident in saying the top 3 are locked in. And so you've got Blackhawks, Preds, Stars, and maybe the Blue Jackets, but probably not scenario coming to pass there.
I agree that Dallas could still climb back into this. I get the sense that Columbus is just going to kind of fall out further, and Nashville, I don't know. I mean, we kind of wrote them off not too long ago. They've put a couple wins together coming back. They're getting better goaltending out of UC Saros. So, and Chicago is a young team and could implode at any moment.
Right. And that would be great for them to get their captain back. So
yeah. Maybe that's what they're like saving him for. Like just
the playoff push.
Yeah, perhaps.
Well, there's like 20 games left, so any day now. I think out west, we're looking at a top 3 that is settled with
pretty much
the Golden Knights, the Avalanche, and the Wild, which is wild.
Sorry, they have a 672 points percentage or win percentage for the casual fan.
And they're 8-2 in their last 10. Like
they look
on a tear.
They look awesome. The Kaprizov effect is real, and it's obviously infectious to that whole team.
Yeah.
But below them, it gets interesting. You've got St. Louis sitting at 16-13, Arizona sitting at 16-14, and then LA at 13-13 with a couple games in hand.
The Blues have been bad.
Yeah, Jordan Binnington has been bad.
Well, he got that money, so now he doesn't have to be good.
Yeah, got paid, go on holiday.
And the Coyotes have been very good as of late, or the last week. They are making that a race.
Except for Clayton Keller's attempt at the Michigan goal. That did not go so good.
Yes, he did have a goal and assist the other day, though.
Oh yeah, he's playing out of his mind, but that was kind of funny. He gets the puck on his stick and up there, and he just misses the net.
Yeah, perfect. That's a perfect summation of his career, I think, actually. I don't see the Kings being a thing here. I'm glad that they're better than people expected them to be, but I don't see them making a late push.
Yeah, they haven't really gone to the youth well fully yet.
Not yet. The Ducks have.
Right, they're still playing Jeff Carter and well, they do have Gabe Velarde, who's a rookie, but yeah, they're still...
Byfield's still sitting down in the minors.
Right, they're not going full youth movement. You can tell that they're kind of waiting to see what happens. But yeah, I think you're also right in that they're maybe not climbing all the way back into it. But if they did, that could be kind of interesting. Their goalie's been having pretty good stretch run.
Cal Peterson is definitely looking like their goalie going forward, which maybe they'll find something to do with Jonathan Quick's contract.
Well, there's rumors that maybe Toronto would trade for him, or somebody would trade for him.
Not with Jack Campbell looking like he does. I don't think Toronto's really in the goalie market anymore.
But, maybe one of these other teams might want to trade for Quick. And that seems kind of hilarious to me. But, maybe Jonathan Quick has another chapter in his career left.
I think it's a 2-team race for that 4th spot.
You think it's St. Louis versus Arizona?
Yeah. And it'd be kind of wild to see Arizona make it.
I would love to see Arizona.
Would love it.
They just get so much shit from us, from everyone else. Like, yeah, make the playoffs. Let's do it.
Well, with the off season that they've had, yeah, like if they could use a little good in their lives. Maybe that's just making it interesting down the stretch. Maybe it's making the playoffs. But
what do you think it would mean to that team to make the playoffs and not be in the cellar?
Up north, who knows what's going on?
Right. Edmonton looks like they're solidly in 3rd behind Winnipeg and Toronto. It doesn't look like any of those teams are falling out of the playoff race anytime soon. But Montreal, Calgary, and Vancouver could really go anybody's way.
Montreal does have 5 games in hand now that they have had to shut it down for a week. So that makes things interesting because they are currently leading. If we're going based off of just pure points, they are leading. They've got 37 points, whereas the Flames and the Canucks are both at 35, and they've both played way more games than Montreal.
But we have yet to see a team come back from one of these breaks and be good. So, Vancouver is decided now that they're not going to sell off parts, and they're apparently trying to make a go of it into the playoffs. Calgary has done what they've done with a coaching change and is doing what they can to try and claw back into the playoff race. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this one plays out. What I'm secretly rooting for is Ottawa to claw back past all of these teams to magically make the playoffs, because they have now beaten Calgary in 3 straight games, and Vancouver doesn't really look very good. So it's perhaps Montreal's to lose, but we'll see what they look like coming back after this COVID imposed break that they've had, because that's when Buffalo's season went off the rails. It's when they had a break. That's kind of when Philly's season went off the rails, is when they had a break. And as you said, we're probably going to have players come out and say, yeah, COVID really hurt me, man. I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah, we haven't seen anybody come out yet and say, why are we even doing this? But I think we will see some people come out and say, oh yeah, you know how I had 4 points last year and normally I score 60? Well, this is why.
Yeah,
I couldn't breathe.
Mika Zibanejad, had such a slow start after having it. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see that come out. It'll sort of be like how the 3 stars or the 3 stars of the week come out, and it's one hockey player, one medical professional. We'll get the injury report and it'll be one hockey injury, one COVID story.
And at that time, we will just nod our heads and go, yeah, this thing sucks.
And we're not playing amateur sports right now, and we don't exactly think that amateur sports are very smart to be played most of the time right now, but people are still playing them, and those people also endure sacrifices and take big hits. And so we're going to talk a little bit about equipment and the reality of protecting your face and cages, and playing with a cage as opposed to a visor where you could lose teeth or an eye even with half protection.
One of the things about cages that I would normally say is that children shouldn't be in them. However, if your child is playing hockey, they should be in a cage, because we're talking about face cages here.
Most leagues mandate that you wear a cage up to college level, to wear a cage playing college roller. Junior, you can wear shield.
A half shield, yeah.
I think some people actually make their decision based on that. But one of our friends got hit this week pretty bad, stick under the shield. His kids aren't usually at the games, but his kids unfortunately had to deal with seeing daddy bleed from the face and laying down on the ice and wondering if he's going to have to get a patch. Luckily, he's okay, isn't going to need surgery. He's got some bleeding and I think took some stitches, but I think he went back to playing pretty quickly again.
Unfortunately, no pirate dad.
I have another friend that lost real time to a bad eye injury, needed emergency surgery to save his eye, and was wearing an eye patch for a very long time. Sean Walker of the LA Kings, young defenseman, nearly lost his career. A shot ricocheted, caught him in the face, and he has, permanent scarring that's like half his face. Mm-hmm. He's lucky he didn't lose a career. Many before him have lost their careers under the exact same circumstances. It's insane that hockey was done without facial protection for so long. And now that we've gone to just face shields, like, people get their faces fucked up a lot.
The listeners out there, do yourself a favor and Google Terry Sawchuk's face.
It's not pretty.
It's held together by like twine and spite.
That's a not safe for work image. And so we understand if you're a professional. Visors do give you a fair amount of better vision, but we would like to, kind of advocate for people to wear cages more often. There's been a definite trend in amateur hockey players that we play with going towards cages. Usually it happens when they get engaged. Their honey says, yeah, we want you pretty for the wedding and with all your teeth. It seems like more and more people are having a scary moment, switching to cages or whatnot.
So I've always worn one for roller hockey. Mm-hmm. I've never not worn one. I'm not trying to have any cool hockey street cred, so I'm totally comfortable keeping all of my teeth. I didn't wear one for ball hockey for the longest time, mm-hmm. and then my wedding was coming up, and I heard a story of a guy who took a ball to the eye.
Oh, yeah.
Weeks before not his wedding, but his photos. Oh. And so like all of their photos are pretty gnarly.
Yeah. And you have to pay out the ass for those photos in which you have a black eye.
And so I was like, okay, well, you know what? Yeah, I'm just going to wear a cage until photos are done and whatnot. And then I was like, nah, I'm just going to keep wearing this because I think I play a little bit more fearlessly when I know I have the cage on.
You stick your nose in places that you otherwise wouldn't.
Yes. If I wasn't wearing a face cage, there's no way in hell I'm blocking a shot. No. I mean, I don't block a lot to begin with, but like, there's no way in hell I'm going to like slide in front of a shot to take it off the chest or something when I don't have full protection on my face.
And really what gets you most dangerously is what got Sean Walker, is that sort of, deflection that gets up high. Usually it like ramps up off a stick or a side of a stick. And that's what got me. That's what gave me a scar on my face. It just so happened to be like, a friendly game. One of the things that keeps my cage on had like rusted off, just happened to catch a deflection right in the side of my eye and, bled all over the place and went to get stitches and then went to the bar after that. But
you have bad luck with pucks to the head.
Yeah, I guess you can say that. But what suffice to say, like, I've got scars, you've got scars. They're not really cool. I mean, they are and they aren't.
They're cool in small doses. Like if you have 1 or 2, cool. If you have 6 or 7, people think you were like a knife fighter or and think you're dangerous. And I don't want to look dangerous at all. So I prefer to look non-aggressive and non-assailant type. So thankfully my scar on my head is that you can see is from tripping when I was a child.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
right. Usually you have enough scars from other shit. You don't need additional scars from playing hockey.
Yeah, I've got one you can't see because it's under my beard that is from tripping while being drunk in college. So
yeah, I mean, there are worse reasons to have a beard.
Oh yeah. Well, I like my beard.
No, I know. It's nice that it
I was actually told yesterday that I'm not allowed to shave. So
yeah, I just prefer you with the beard too. Yeah.
I look I shouldn't be allowed near a school.
Without it?
Without it.
I think you look a little like accountant-y. You have to be in a suit and tie. I don't know. If you're wearing a suit and tie, your beard accentuates it.
I'm a great groomsman right now.
Well groomed.
Actually, the last wedding I was in, I asked my buddy, I was like, hey, normally it was a winter wedding. I was like, hey, normally I don't trim my beard in the winter. Are you okay with me not trimming it this year? Like I can groom it up. I can get it nice for the wedding. And he's like, oh no, I don't care. I was like, are you sure? You might want to ask your wife.
He's like, can I request a Fu Manchu?
No, he was just like, no, it's all good, man. And then I showed up fully bearded and his wife was not thrilled.
Why is David Letterman here?
Exactly. Same hairline, same beard color. Oh God.
Similar interview skills, I would say.
Maybe we'll see. Hopefully we'll get us.
Hopefully we'll get Obama.
Ooh, first interview, the Prez.
Hello, Handsome Hockey. I've told you're big fans.
Turns out we are. And he's like, well, I really enjoy you as well. Wait, what? That's what all the listens in Chicago are actually from.
Oh, yeah.
Obama. He's
We'll zoom in on the south side.
He's like, Melania, come listen to this. With us discussing Barack Obama's pretty sweet life, I think it's time for us to say goodbye. Thank you so much, as always, for listening and for any feedback, any social media interactions we have with you. We're really thrilled to keep doing this and keep entertaining at least ourselves during COVID, if not the rest of you. But thank you for partaking. As always, you can find us all over the internet. Our website is handsomehockey.com. On Instagram, we are Handsome Hockey Podcast, at Handsome Hockey on Twitter. Our email where you can reach us is handsomehockeypod@gmail.com. We are still waiting to hear from our Canadian listeners about their free poutine. So get to us. You can also find us. We have a Facebook page for Handsome Hockey. You can find our podcast all over the internets and pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast. We're there. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, and Red Circle. And now on Carrier Pigeon. Ooh. That's I have no jokes. As the flap of the wing beats out in rhythm to our cadence and then like produces sound that mimics our voice. No, the pigeon just brings you a USB stick. Oh, yeah, I guess that's more practical. Thanks for tuning in and stay handsome, everybody. Reste beau.